Greetings, and on behalf of the Summer Lecture Series Planning Committee and the wonderful members of OSHER at Dartmouth, I welcome you to today, the third session of this wonderful series. I want to also welcome our colleagues at OSHER at the University of Vermont, where we are live streaming this broadcast, and where we hope that we can receive some questions as well.
It is an honor to introduce former Secretary of Defense, Dr. William J. Perry. Bill left Carnegie Tech, which is now Carnegie Mellon, after a few semesters to enlist in the Air Cadets shortly after World War II ended. He went on to enlist in the Army Engineers and was posted to Tokyo, where he witnessed firsthand the massive destruction caused by modern warfare. Tokyo had been destroyed by firebombs. Hiroshima's destruction by a relatively small nuclear weapon was many times worse. On return from Japan, he completed his bachelor's and his master's degree at Stanford under the GI Bill. He then went to Penn State for his PhD in mathematics. He has spent his entire career pursuing the control of nuclear arms. Please welcome the Honorable Dr. William J. Perry.
Well, thank you, John, for that warm and wonderful introduction. And good morning to all of you. In the nightmare of the dark, all the dogs of Europe bark, and the living nations wait, each sequestered in its hate. Each sequestered in its hate. The poet W.H. Auden wrote those prophetic lines in 1939 on the eve of World War II. In the next 6 years, that nightmare led to the death of more than 50 million people. When World War II ended in 1945 with the dropping of nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the world wanted to believe that that nightmare was over. But when I left the Pentagon in 1997, I fully believed that we were well on our way to ending forever the Cold War enmity. But that was not to be. In the late 90s, we began a downward slide. NATO expanded to Russian borders, in my opinion, prematurely. Indeed, I strongly argued with the President against doing it. In the next decade, the United States installed ballistic missile defense systems in Eastern Europe, which the Russians considered a threat to their deterrence forces. Perhaps most importantly, this past decade, the United States has supported what was called color revolutions in the Mideast and in the Ukraine. And Putin, when he regained the presidency in 2012, believed that the United States was supporting a color revolution in Russia designed to overthrow his regime. And that's the reason, and he blamed Obama and he blamed Hillary Clinton on that, and that's the reason that such an enmity developed between the Obama administration and the Putin. And I went back to Washington and told Harold Brown, said, you and I are going to throw our bodies in front of the train, the Bureau of Budget train, and stop that cancellation. We're going to go ahead with this program. I had to make some compromises. The final constellation was going to have, I think, 24 satellites, and we cut it down to 16 or something, which is enough to give us coverage at everything except extreme northern latitudes. But we went ahead. And if it hadn't been for that trip down to Albuquerque and that wonderful helicopter ride I had, it would have been killed at that point, dead. So yes, I feel your GPS system you owe to me. Have we forgotten the dangers of the Cold War nuclear arms race. Putin has also dropped Russia's long-standing no first-use policy. All during the Cold War, for all of our concern with Russia, they were publicly proclaiming they would never use nuclear weapons first. And Putin has explicitly withdrawn from that pledge. Neither one of us want any more nuclear proliferation. We agree on that. We ought to find a way of coming together and enforcing that. Neither of us want nuclear terrorism. You saw the video of the bomb going off in Washington, D.C. That bomb could just as well have gone off in Moscow or St. Petersburg. So we both have interest in preventing a nuclear terrorism. We both have an interest, although we have a hard time coming to agreement on it, on reducing the number of nuclear weapons. We both have interest in reducing the danger of nuclear weapons. I told you in my talk about the danger of an accidental nuclear war resulting from a false alarm. Nothing could be more obvious than both the United States and Russia would not like that to happen. So it's very important that we do this. To do it, obviously, we have to separate out those problems where we disagree from those problems where we have a mutual interest. All of those problems, many of the problems I can think of where we have a mutual interest in the nuclear field. And we just simply need to get busy to do that. Even if you have to talk, even though you don't like people, even though you disagree with them, you have to find a way of talking with them about problems where if you can solve them, it'll be in the overwhelming interest of both countries to do so. And nuclear issues lead the pack in that area. Much of my talk today, I'm afraid, has a doomsday ring to it. But that truly is not who I am. I'm basically an optimist. When I see a bad situation, I always look for a ray of hope. And my ray of hope is that I believe that we can still reverse the downward slide in the United States and Russian relations. And that is what I'm working for. If we could succeed in that, we could then work to stop and reverse the drift to an increasing dependence on nuclear weapons. But I realize that giving a lecture or writing a book is not going to get that message across to the millions of people it needs to get across to. I need to get the message across using the internet. So why do I keep working at this intractable problem instead of spending my golden years in the Garden of Eden known as Palo Alto? And I answer that question with one of my favorite lines from Robert Frost. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Thank you.